Hi there, my name is Sam Hayes and I'm with One Stop Transaction Services, and I want to walk you through the new RPA updates that are coming out December of 2022. Thank you for joining me. I'm also using this presentation for a caravan this week, so that slide was added in. There's some really big verbiage changes that you need to be aware of that'll be taking place. The verbiage "and approve" has been added to both buyer to review on the disclosures and the HOA documents. Previously, it's been acknowledged in receipt and copies. They are approving those. If there's an issue in a disclosure, if there's an issue and they have questions or don't agree with on the HOA, they do not have to now sign. This opens up a huge door for issues about clarification, making sure that we get more details. It's better to get everything done during the listing period. Make sure you've got all that information. You get the clarifying, get the extra receipts. If something indicates that there's a water leak or anything like that, this is going to be a bigger red flag than you think. Another one is also specifying that the insurance investigation includes availability and cost for both homeowner, flood, and fire insurance. This is a major issue in California. We've been lucky so far. We have not had one of our worst years, but there's still time. And the rates are always going up. You want to make sure, especially in the outlying areas or anywhere you know there's been previously fire hazards, that the buyer does their investigations as quickly as possible. Also, even if needing to, finding out from the seller who their current insurance provider is and talking to them. The CR timeframes, we've talked about this for years and years and years, but people haven't quite understood it. It now clarifies you've got 17 days to deliver, or excuse me, 17 days for your contingency removal. However, they get 5 days to review. So if you deliver those on day 11, you're fine. But if you go into day 12, 13, 14, 15, they now get the extra days on the back end. Whatever gives them 5 days from receipt. Even if your contingency removal is tomorrow, they get the longer, which is the 5 days from receipt. This is specific clarified on different lines in the transaction. You'll mainly see this in section 3, where the contingencies are in the grid. Tests are also now included. It's not just the inspections, reports, and certificates. You need to give copies of if you have something tested and the results of those tests, be it for mold, if you have any wells, if you're getting anything else, electricity, anything along those lines. Seller is always supposed to been provide the insurance claim if they've known in the past 5 years. However, now, if you're in a situation with a potential probate, trust, REO, the seller just completes the ACR form, which gives the ability for the buyer to contact their insurance provider and obtain that clue themselves. So this is a lot of things that are changed. They've already been out there. We've already known about them. But again, it's more clarification in the specific verbiage, which then changes legalities and also clarification, and if this becomes something that goes to court. So you want to be aware, you want to know about this, and you want to be educating your clients as much as possible. This one is regarding there's no default amount for points. This was updated that right now the buyer can pay as many points to obtain the rates. This was a shift of what's going on in the market, what's going on in lending, just basically really pretty basic, as you can see on the screen. Right in here is same as you want to make sure you're completing all of these sections when you write your offer, noting and discussing with the lender prior to if the buyer will be paying down points. The buyer can now ask the seller to pay for the transaction. They can ask them to pay their agent. This is not the same as already the commission that's in the MLS. This is dealing with if there's a buyer broker agreement and they've set a specific amount of money or something along those lines, they will not be paying the listing agent twice. It's an A or B situation. Either you go with what's in the MLS or this is what we'd like you to pay because we agreed to our buyer's agent that we're paying them 4% for some reason. You're going to definitely want to discuss this with your broker specifically, and this will also need to be negotiated prior to starting to show properties so that you can make sure you have all the correct forms filled out. Units occupied by persons other than sellers. So this is clarifying that if the units are occupied and it's a tenant or a person other than the seller, the TOPA tenant in property was a tenant occupied property addendum you're going to want to make sure is also included. Sometimes the buyer's agents may not know there is a tenant in the property and it's not included. This is clarifying that if it hasn't been disclosed or questioned by the buyer and the seller's aware of it, you're going to need to counter and include that form. Home warranty. So this has been a major change since last December. What you need to know is it's been pushed over to the buyer. Basically, it's just a credit the seller gives. Other than that, the seller is not involved. Listing side is not involved in the orders. Moving forward, the buyer should be selecting the company, selecting the services, the coverage, and the carrier. This clarifies that any overage, I've seen this come up with several of my escrow companies, who's paying the overage automatically defaults to the buyer. That's the verbiage in section 10C of the RPA. This also states that the buyer they want to do any investigations about what type of coverage, that's at their cost, including any reports that home warranty company may require to provide said coverage. If it's roof, if it's any of the pool, plumbing, you'd need to talk specifically to the home warranty carrier for those requirements. So this is also about adding the verbiage for the retention of the deposit. A lot of times you write in that deposit to become non-refundable upon contingency removal. That's not supposed to be done without legal counsel, because you are practicing RE law when you add anything to the contract. So by doing this, you want to make sure that, one, everybody's agreed that you'll consult with your real estate attorney, that it meets the statutory liquidated damages required per civil code. I'm not aware of that. Most agents are not aware of it. We definitely want to make sure that we're reviewing that with legal counsel and broker of record to make sure that there aren't any issues or liability. And it now needs to also address, what do you do if the deposit isn't put in? What's that verbiage? How do you cover it? What do you do about that? We're getting deeper and deeper. Every time you have one of these additions, it's a result of a lawsuit. So make sure you're discussing your broker's policy when doing any added verbiage along those lines, especially regarding retaining the deposit. And always seek legal counsel. This goes back to clarifying again that if the buyer intends to occupy any of the units, that unit, one, must be identified by the buyer within 3 days of acceptance. So do they want the upstairs? Do they want the downstairs? Do they want the 3-bedroom? Do they only want the 2-bedroom? Also, it needs to be identified that unless you have agreed for any other reason, that property is supposed to be vacant, because that's where they're getting for the primary. That affects their loan. If that is not exactly what happens, and typically they have 60 days to occupy the property after close of escrow, you could unintentionally be participating in mortgage fraud. So make sure you verify all requirements with the lender prior to writing the offer. Also, make sure you're very clear with your client about what will be required prior to writing the offer. If for some reason it is agreed to, then you can clarify with the TOPA, that's the tenant occupied property addendum, in your counter. Window coverings now include the hardware and the rods. So you can't just say the curtains, but we're going to take the rods. Also, the pool heater is now expressly included if those have been issues prior. Solar, we've got a new disclosure coming out, and I'll do a second video for that specifically about it. It's basically clarifying, answering questions. It's going to be very similar to an SPQ, but solar focused, for the seller to complete and help trigger reminders about information, if there's questions, if there's been work done, who their contacts are, all of that. But this clarifies that you need to be provided within the same paragraph, like same time as your disclosures. We need to be sending over any known information about the solar panels, the solar system, typically a contract, how do they pay their monthly bills, all of those type of things, the lease, the lien, to assume if there is one. What I suggest is, while you're getting disclosures ready during the listing period, we definitely want these sellers to start contacting the solar company and find out what their process is specifically for transfer. Also, any documentation we need to do, what information of the buyers and escrow we need to get them in touch with as soon as possible when we open escrow. We're supposed to tell escrow when we sign the contract. Okay, well, we should have been doing that anyway, but this clarifies it. Also, nomination is to be treated the same way as assignment. So if somebody is now nominated or taking over for some reason, they also still have to sign everything. We still do an AOA. It's still within the time frames in section 3, all of that fun stuff. But basically, we need to tell escrow what the heck's going on. Legal holidays. Now, this has been an ongoing issue that there's been a debate back and forth for years, because we didn't have a clarification of what is a legal holiday. So a legal holiday now, they are clarifying, is basically stating that it's anything under civil code or government code. However, so that's for legal holiday for counting days, if we have a contingency due or something along those lines. But for close of escrow purposes, legal holiday is any day a recorded office in the county, the lender, or the escrow company is closed. If they're closed, we can't close the deal. It's just not going to happen. So close of escrow then would occur the next business day that they are open. This is going to come up a lot in the next few months, especially with the holidays coming up. So you're going to want to be aware and look at your calendars when writing your offers and have conversations with escrow companies, lenders, double check your county recorder schedules. Different counties in San Diego take off different days, in California. San Diego has Cesar Chavez Day that other counties don't take off. So you always want to make sure you're up to date and checking on those, especially when we get towards the end of the year and we're in that window of about the next 6 months having holidays. The best part, save for last. You must fill this out. This will not typically auto-populate. So when you are writing your offer, you're going to want to double check. The contract was changed in December so that once you send a contract to the email addresses that are listed here, it's delivered. Whether or not they get it, whether or not they open it, it's delivered. But if the email addresses are not clarified in this section, then I don't have a way to prove your delivery was within compliance of the contract, which means we're open for debate and gray areas regarding timeframes, contingencies, all of those things. Save yourself a ton of headache. You're going to want to fill this out every single time. I know it's annoying. We can't auto-populate it because they're concerned that you might be changing your email. You may change an address. They need to make sure it's the correct one every single time. And listing agents, when you're accepting your offers, you need to fill this out completely as well. It's on both sides. We can use the DEDA, which is the designated delivery addresses, to be clarified. It's an addendum we can do. Or now they're now calling it an amendment. But that still opens up a window of gray area. Why not get it correct from the start? Please make sure you need to manually fill this out every single time. You've got to double check it. This protects you for your delivery and your time frames. Let me know if you have any questions. I am happy to talk about this stuff till I'm blue in the face. My name is Sam Hayes. I'm One Stop Transaction Services. I've been doing this almost 19 years, and I look forward to helping you. Call anytime, 619-993-7264. Thanks so much.